My name is Dr. Irene Calloway. I'm 32 years old. I have a husband who makes me laugh, a golden retriever named Hippocrates, Hippo for short, and a house with a porch that gets good morning light. I also have a sister who spent 5 years convincing our parents I had thrown my life away. And last January, that sister was wheeled into my trauma bay at 3 a.m., bleeding internally, and I was the only surgeon in the building who could save her. Growing up in New Haven, Connecticut, there were 2 daughters in our house, but only one who seemed to count. My sister Diane is 3 years older. She was born performing school plays, student council, the girl who could charm every adult in any room. My parents, Robert and Carol, adored her for it. What they valued most were appearances and loyalty. Diane delivered both every single day without being asked. I was the quiet one. Nose in a textbook at Thanksgiving while Diane held court. I wasn't difficult or rebellious. I was simply invisible, and there is a difference between being forgotten and never being fully seen in the first place. I placed second at the state science fair in 8th grade, the only student from our school to qualify. That same weekend, Diane had a community theater performance. One guess where my parents went. When I came home with a ribbon, my father glanced at it, said, "That's nice, Renee," and walked out of the room. He never asked what my project was about. I told myself it didn't hurt. I poured everything into grades, AP courses, applications. If I couldn't be the daughter they noticed, I'd be the one they couldn't ignore. And for one brief moment I was. The spring of my senior year, I was accepted to Oregon Health and Science University's medical program. My father read the letter at the kitchen table, and something in his face shifted. He looked at me, really looked, and said, "Maybe you'll make something of yourself after all." Not a compliment exactly, but the closest thing I'd ever gotten. I held onto it like oxygen. My mother called everyone she knew that night. Her voice had a pitch I'd never heard before when she talked about me. Pride, genuine and undiluted. And across the dinner table, I caught Diane's face. She was smiling, but only with her mouth. Her eyes were calculating, measuring, recalibrating. I noticed it and told myself she was tired. I was naive. I was also about to start handing her everything she needed. That week, she began calling me constantly. Who was my roommate? What were my professors like? She remembered every name I shared, every detail I volunteered. I thought my getting into medical school had unlocked something real between us. What I was actually doing was handing her ammunition, every vulnerability wrapped in a grateful smile. Third year of medical school, my best friend and roommate Claire was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. She had no family. She was the person who had sat on our apartment floor with me after my mother once said she couldn't talk because Diane was having a rough day, and told me quietly, "Their loss. Now get up. We have cadavers to memorize." When Claire got sick, she had no one else. I went to the dean's office, explained everything, and was granted a formal caregiver leave of absence for 1 semester. Documented, signed, stamped. I would return in January. I called Diane to tell her. Her voice was all warmth and sympathy. "Take all the time you need," she said. "I won't say a word to Mom and Dad. I know they'd only worry." 3 days later, she called our parents. The damage was immediate. The call came at 11 at night. I was sitting beside Claire's hospital bed. My phone lit up, Dad. His voice was flat, arctic. "Your sister told us everything. The dropping out, the boyfriend, all of it." There was no boyfriend. There was no dropping out. I tried to explain, the paperwork, the dean's number, Claire in the next room. He stopped me. "Monica said you'd have a story ready." My mother got on the line, already convinced. I had 4 minutes and 12 seconds before the line went dead. That's how long it took them to erase me. Over the next 5 days, I called 14 times. My father blocked me first. My mother followed 2 days later. I sent 2 emails with my leave of absence paperwork attached. No response. I mailed a handwritten letter priority shipping. It came back unopened. I recognized my mother's handwriting on the envelope. I called Aunt Ruthie, who called my father, who hung up on her. 5 days, 14 calls, 2 emails, 1 letter, 1 intermediary. Every single attempt rejected, blocked, or returned. On the 6th day, I stopped. Not because I gave up, but because I understood they had chosen a long time ago. Diane had simply given them permission to stop pretending otherwise. Claire died on a Sunday morning in December. I was the only one in the room. I organized a small funeral. 7 people came. I stood at the front of a chapel that could hold 60 and read a eulogy to rows of empty pews. That night I found a card tucked inside her copy of Grey's Anatomy. In her handwriting, shaky but deliberate, "Finish what you started, Irene. Become the doctor I know you are. Don't let anyone, especially your own blood, tell you who you are." She had written it weeks before she died. She knew I'd need the push. I re-enrolled in January. No family, no safety net. Extra loans, a part-time research position, hospital cafeteria leftovers more times than I'll admit. Medical school doesn't pause for grief, so I stopped crying and started working. I graduated on time. No one from New Haven came. I matched into a surgical residency at Mercerist Medical Center in Hartford, a level 1 trauma center, where I met Dr. Margaret Osei, chief of surgery, who became my mentor and the closest thing to a mother I had. In my 3rd year of residency, I met Daniel, calm eyes, dry humor. The first person I told the full story to who didn't flinch or pity me. He just listened, then said, "You deserve better." 4 words. That was enough. We were married in Margaret's backyard, 30 guests, Daniel's mother walking me down the aisle. I sent an invitation to New Haven. It came back unopened. 5 years passed. I became chief of trauma surgery. I built a whole, real life with my own hands. But there is a specific kind of ache that never fully fades. It lives in the hollow space between your ribs where a family is supposed to be. Then last January at 3:07 a.m., my pager pulled me out of a dead sleep. Level 1 trauma. Single female, 35. Blunt abdominal trauma. Hemodynamically unstable. I was driving in 6 minutes. I picked up the intake tablet at the nurse's station and swiped to the chart. Patient, Diane Calloway. Emergency contact, Robert Calloway, father. I stopped walking. The hallway noise pulled back like a tide. For 3 seconds, I wasn't a surgeon. Then I set the tablet down and told my nurse to prep Bay 2. The stretcher came fast. My sister was strapped down, unconscious, oxygen mask fogging with shallow breaths, blood on her shirt. Behind the paramedics running came my parents. My mother was in a bathrobe, slippers on the wrong feet. My father was the color of old paper. "That's my daughter," he shouted. "I need whoever's in charge." My nurse told him the chief was handling this personally. He demanded the chief immediately. She glanced through the partition at me, gowned, gloved, badge at chest level, and her eyes widened for just a fraction. I gave a small shake of my head. Not now. As my parents were led to the waiting room, I heard my father say to no one, "She's all we have. Please. She's all we have." As if I had never existed. 30 seconds in the scrub room, hot water over my hands. My face in the stainless steel mirror distorted and warped the way everything felt. I paged Dr. Hendricks, disclosed the conflict of interest formally, documented it in the chart, everything by the book. Then I pulled on fresh gloves and walked into the OR. 3 hours and 47 minutes. Ruptured spleen removed. Grade 3 liver laceration repaired layer by painstaking layer. Internal bleeding from 2 mesenteric vessels, clamped and controlled. My hands moved the way they've been trained to move, steady, deliberate. At 6:51 a.m., I placed the final closing stitch. My sister's vitals were stable. She was alive. Dr. Hendricks pulled down his mask. Flawless. "You want me to handle the family?" I peeled off my gloves. "No," I said. "This one's mine." I walked into the waiting room in surgical scrubs, badge at chest level. Dr. Irene Calloway, MD, fax. Chief of Trauma Surgery, printed in clean block letters anyone could read from 6 feet away. My father stood first. His eyes dropped to the badge, rose to my face, dropped again. I watched the recognition move through him like something physical. My mother looked up and her lips parted without a sound. 5 seconds of silence that held 5 years. "Mr. and Mrs. Calloway," I said, calm and clinical. "I'm Dr. Calloway, Chief of Trauma Surgery. Your daughter sustained a ruptured spleen and a grade 3 liver laceration. Surgery was successful. She's stable in the ICU and you'll be able to see her in approximately 1 hour. Mr. and Mrs. not mom and dad." I watched that land. My mother stepped toward me, arms lifting. "Irene, oh God," I stepped back. Half a step, polite, unmistakable. Her hands hung in the air between us and slowly dropped. My father said horse, but Diane told us, what exactly? He closed his mouth. 5 years of certainty crumbling in real time. I didn't accuse, I recited. 2 emails with paperwork attached. One letter returned unopened in Mom's own handwriting. 14 calls in 5 days. Aunt Ruthie asking him to listen, and him hanging up on her. Facts don't need volume. I turned and walked toward the ICU, spine straight. I didn't look back. But I heard my mother's voice behind me, small and completely undone. Robert, what have we done? And I heard my father say nothing. Because silence, for the first time, was the only honest thing he had left. Aunt Ruthie arrived at the hospital that morning with a phone full of screenshots. My emails, my leave of absence paperwork, my residency graduation photo, and a text Diane had sent her 4 years prior. Don't tell Mom and Dad about Irene's residency. They're finally at peace. Ruthie read it aloud in that ICU room. Then she looked at my parents and said what she had been waiting 5 years to say. You didn't believe the lie because you loved Diane more. You believed it because loving her was easier. Nobody argued. There was nothing left to argue with. 2 weeks later, I met Diane at a coffee shop in Middletown, neutral ground. She came in hollowed out, the confidence she usually wore like cologne entirely gone. I didn't do preamble. I want to know why. Long silence. Then, quietly, because you were going to be everything I wasn't, and I couldn't handle it. I let that sit. That's the most honest thing you've said to me in 10 years. I gave her one condition. She would tell the full truth to every family member she had lied to in writing, confirmed delivered by Ruthie. She nodded. No performance. That was new. The email went out on a Wednesday night. Our grandmother, 89 years old and furious, called me directly. Nobody formally punished Diane, nobody organized an exile. But the trust she had spent 35 years carefully stockpiling was simply gone, and for someone whose entire identity was built on being believed, that turned out to be consequence enough. My parents started counseling. My mother wrote me a handwritten letter, the irony not lost on either of us. She said she had failed me not just when she believed Diane, but every time she chose peace over fairness. Every time she let my father's certainty decide what was true. Every time she saw me standing quietly in a doorway and told herself I was fine because it was easier than being brave enough to fight for me. I read it at the kitchen table, Hippo asleep on my feet. I didn't cry. But I held it for a long time before I placed it in the drawer where I keep the things that matter. This past February, on a Sunday morning with light snow falling outside, the kind that doesn't stick, but makes everything look like it's being gently forgiven, the doorbell rang. My parents stood on the porch in their winter coats. My father was holding a bottle of orange juice like he wasn't sure what to do with his hands. My mother had a tin of her shortbread, the kind she made for every one of Diane's school events, and none of mine. Hi, she said, nervous and hopeful. Come in, I said. Coffee's almost ready. My father stepped inside and looked around the kitchen like he was cataloging a life he had almost never gotten to see. He cleared his throat. Can I help with anything? I looked at him, 62 years old, standing in my kitchen for the first time, asking permission to be useful. You can set the table, I told him. He found the cabinet I pointed to, took out 4 plates, and set them down one by one, carefully, like they might break if he wasn't gentle. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't the childhood I deserved or the reconciliation you see in movies, but it was real. And real is more than I had for a very long time. My name is Dr. Irene Calloway. I'm 32 years old. I didn't get revenge on my sister. I didn't need it. I became someone who didn't. And if you are waiting for your family to see you, really see you, stop waiting. See yourself first. Build the life you deserve with the people who actually show up. And when the others finally turn around, let them find a door that you control. You decide when it opens. You decide how wide. You decide who walks through. That's not revenge. That's architecture.